simply be helpful. Simply go out and identify all the problems that your prospects have, go and understand all the questions they're asking, and go about answering them in your marketing.
My name's Peter Sumpton, and this is the Marketing Study Lab podcast. A podcast for those that are thinking, have thought and are doing, or already have a marketing qualification. But there's a little bit of something for everyone, as we cover a whole host of marketing topics. I chat to some amazing guests, each one a superstar in their own niche. And if you have a burning marketing question already, or after this episode, get in touch, we'll chat it through. peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn, the link is in the show notes. If you'd like to leave a review on iTunes, this will really help others find this podcast and spread the marketing word. Now let's get on with today's episode. What is Mendelows Matrix? Have you ever heard of it? Well, I can tell you it's another marketing framework. And this framework looks again at the internal perspective of your organisation and stakeholders. But more on that later, as now it's time to chat to our guest. And I am so honoured, so chuffed that this guy has decided to come on the Marketing Study Lab podcast, because he's one of the main reasons you're listening to me right now. So I actually said to him before this interview, or this chat, sorry, I don't like calling them interviews because they're not. I said to him, look, I'm a bit nervous because you're one of the main reasons that I do what I do. And he said, Pete, just chill out. It's absolutely fine. We'll just have a lot of good crack and we'll get this out and it'll be brilliant. And it was. So it's my honour to introduce this guy. Tim Reid is Australia's top marketing keynote speaker and host of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, which just happens to be a podcast and one of the first that I was ever introduced to, and I was hooked. Please check Timbo's show out. It's Marketing GOLD, and that's a little in-joke from his show. You'll understand when you listen. Anyway, Timbo helps small business owners make their company, products, and services truly irresistible. And he does this through public speaking, masterminds, workshops, webinars, and, well, of course, podcasts. So, in true Timbo style, to kick off this interview, I'd like to ask, what is your favourite dad joke?
Pete, you're a long-time listener of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, and you know that I am a bit of a fan of dad jokes, but I get a lot of heat from cracking dad jokes on my show. I get a lot of complaints from listeners all around the world. So I'm going to pass on that question and just leave it to the imagination of your wonderful listeners about their favourite dad joke. And if they do want one, listen to my show.
I love it. That is fantastic. What a great answer. Never stop the dad jokes, Tim. Never.
Thank you. I have a supporter in dad jokes. I can't believe it.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get serious now. Tell us your story. What's brought you to this stage of your career as, well, Tim Reid, really?
That's a massive question. And, you know, being someone who doesn't like talking about himself, tell me. So I've been a marketing guy ever since, probably even in school. I normally say since leaving school, but I went to marketing at university in Australia. I graduated and went straight into a large advertising agency for about 10 years. I cut my teeth on advertising, looking after the needs of big brands like Mercedes-Benz, Dulux, AXA. And then I realised I needed to get a bit of experience on the other side of the fence. So I was lucky enough to get a job as the marketing manager of Australia's largest travel company and flight centre. So then I had a sort of well-rounded view of marketing and not just an advertising view, because as we know, marketing is much more than just advertising, although many people think that's what marketing is.
Absolutely.
I then got a bit jacked, Pete, of working for the man, for the big corporate kind of thing. And I just love working with small business owners and helping them with their marketing. So I started a podcast it's in its 10th year. I started the Small Business Big Marketing Show 10 years ago, and it's sort of I didn't know quite where it would lead. It was a way for me to share my marketing knowledge to small business owners. At the time, I'd also started my own marketing consultancy, which for the podcast was a way of differentiating myself from all the other marketing consultants out there, and it did that really well. Then I started to get asked, as a direct result of podcasting, I started to get asked to speak at conferences, and one conference led to another, and I started to do 30, 40, 50 conferences a year. And that all of a sudden allowed me to close the marketing consultancy business and just focus on speaking and podcasting. And podcasting by that stage for me was very much revenue positive, thanks to some great sponsors. And so here I am today. I still put out the show every week. I still speak at conferences. I create the odd podcast, very odd, for private companies that don't go out into the public domain but just get heard by their employees. And yeah, so here I am today. It's been a really interesting journey, but it's always been around marketing.
That's great to hear. Just before we go into a little more detail about podcasting in general, can you just explain two things? What the Small Business Big Marketing podcast is all about, pretty self-explanatory, but a little bit more detail would be great. And what's this thing that I hear you talk about, the boomerang effect?
Well, they're two very different questions, but my show, it says what it does on the pack: small business, big marketing. My view around marketing is pretty simple, and it does link into the boomerang effect. But marketing, when I speak to small business owners anywhere in the world, Pete, one of the things that they're really frustrated by is marketing, is getting more customers, attracting the right type of customers, and retaining the right type of customers. And marketing's very good at that. Marketing's very good at generating inquiry, done well. So the Small Business Big Marketing Show is my way of helping small business owners everywhere come to terms and feel confident with their marketing, with the marketing of their beautiful, precious business. And so I do that by every episode is always broken up into a variety of things. It has an interview with a successful business owner somewhere in the world who's used marketing to achieve that success, some form of marketing to achieve that success. I generally have a bit of a rant about an aspect of marketing. And then, as you know, as a listener, I have a couple of different segments depending on the week, but I might have the jingle of the week. I might have a segment called Wow, which is how to wow your customers, which I do with a guy from LA. But everything, the show always comes back to I want the listener to walk away going, I feel pretty good about marketing my business now. I have an increased confidence and enthusiasm because, Pete, my wish for any small business owner is that the marketing of their business becomes a hobby. Mm-hmm. And that sounds a bit wacky, but what I mean by that is that when something's a hobby, you love doing it. You can't wait to do it next time. You'll find the time and the money to put behind that hobby, and it's really enjoyable. And I don't see why the marketing of one's business, which is, it's your baby. If it's your own business, it's your baby, can't become a hobby. And that's what the show aims to do. The boomerang effect plays into that simply because there's so many types of marketing out there. And if I was to dumb it down to the level of push marketing versus pull marketing, you have push marketing, which is advertising, direct marketing, direct sales, all that type of stuff, which is there's nothing wrong with it, but it's pushy. And there is an absolute role for it. But then there's pull marketing, which is where you pull people towards you, often because you've been incredibly helpful. So the boomerang effect is the name of a book I've written and the name of a concept that I've developed, which is when you are helpful in your marketing, it will return multiples. like a boomerang returns to you. So my suggestion to anyone listening who is wondering how to go about their marketing is, first and foremost, simply be helpful. Simply go out and identify all the problems that your prospects have, go and understand all the questions they're asking, and go about answering them in your marketing, whether that be in a blog post, a podcast, a YouTube video, an ebook, an ad in a local paper, a little presentation at the local small business, club or association in your local area. Whatever it is, be helpful, because I can guarantee it. If you are helpful in your marketing, you are going to build trust and familiarity with your prospects. They're going to love you for it, and they're more inclined to use you and become less price sensitive. They're going to be less they're not going to want to negotiate, because you have proven that you are helpful and that you are going to help them make the right informed purchase decision. And so therefore price becomes less of an issue, and you get paid what you're worth, and it's a win-win.
I think that's the best description of marketing and why it's important we've ever had on this podcast. So
there
bravo.
we go. My job is done.
It's like
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. It's like you do this for a living. It's very strange. So, just very quickly back to the podcast. Did you decide just one day, I know what small businesses need? They need a podcast, or was it more of a passion, or was it more of a punt, and you just thought, well, let's see if this works?
Look, I fell into it. So how I fell into podcasting story is this. I had been doing some work. This is about 12 years ago. I was working at a charity in Melbourne, Australia, called Reid, and Reid helps young people at risk. That was the nature of their business, of their cause. I was there as in a business capacity, helping them out, and I would also very informally, very casually, just mentor some of the young people that were coming through the program. One of those young people went on to become a pretty well-known radio producer who produced, and still does, produced one of the most successful radio programs in Australia. His name's Sam, and about 11 years ago, I said to Sam, I discovered this thing called podcasting. It was actually a show called Killer Innovations, put together by the Vice President of Innovation at Hewlett-Packard in California, a guy called Phil McKinney. And I'd found this podcast on the internet that I could listen to on my phone anytime I wanted, as often as I wanted, for free. And it was like, this is about a topic that I was interested in. And I thought, this is mind-blowing. So I rang Sam up and I said, Sam, I found this thing called podcasting, and it excites me on many levels. It means that I could possibly have my own show. It means that as a marketer, I could help other business owners get their own show. And it's a wonderful way to build profile and influence. And he said, anytime you want to use the studios in at the radio station he was working at, he would, because I'd helped him out, he would return the favour. So I took him up on that offer. I didn't know what I was going to do. I rang a mate, Luke, who became my co-host for the first 80 episodes. I rang him and said, Lukey, we've got this opportunity to create a show in a real radio studio. And he said, well, let's do it. And that's how the show was born. Now, I don't tell that story very often, Pete, because I don't want anyone listening to think that in order to start a podcast, you need a flash radio studio.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't. You need a smartphone and a quiet space.
Yeah.
And you're underway. You know, I don't know where you are right now, but I'm guessing maybe a home office.
Yep.
Maybe your lounge room. Yeah, is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And my setup now is a little bit different to when I started. This podcast's only been going for a year, but the setup is a little bit different, and you just invest as you go on, and you get more interested in it. And like you say, you just don't need any of that just to start. Just start.
No. Just start. So, and that's what I did. And then one thing led to another. You get better at what you're doing. I'd go back to episode 1 of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, and I'd sort of cringe. I'm not going to be I'm not so humble as to say it was terrible, but it was, you just get better. And you know that the first few are going to be a bit awful, and you improve. And what happens is that, again, my podcast and your podcast too, Pete, is an example of the boomerang effect in action. You are being helpful in your marketing, and amazing things happen as a result of that. You don't know sometimes what. Primarily, you hope that you get more clients, right, and more of the right clients. But for me, other things happened. I have spoken at probably 500 conferences in 10 countries in the last 10 years as a result of my podcast. I have emceed some really big award shows in Australia as a result of my podcast. I've had a radio program for a couple of years as a result of my podcast. So I just think it's amazing when you are helpful in your marketing and when you really do put in, amazing things come back in return.
Absolutely. Staying with your podcast, you've interviewed hundreds of business owners, mainly small businesses, some larger, some famous people have been on your show. One of the most recent ones was, I can't remember the guy's name from Shark Tank.
Oh yeah, Andrew Banks.
Yeah, Andrew
He's one
Banks.
of the sharks on the Australian Shark Tank.
Yeah, that was really cool. It's called Dragon's Den over here.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Is there any one thing that sets them all apart, or are they all just very different?
I would say there's a couple of things that come to mind immediately. One is they have a huge respect for marketing. Now, I have to put a proviso on that, and that it's a criteria for being on my show that marketing has played a large part in achieving success for them. But they all respect marketing. Many business owners don't. Like I said at the start, many business owners fear it. It leaves a bad taste in the mouth of many because they've tried something and it didn't work. Yet the successful business owners have a huge respect for it. The other answer to your question, Pete, is it's a bit of a cliche, but they are willing to fail. They're willing to just fail and get up again and try a slight pivot or just make a slight change to the way they're doing things, and they don't give up easily. So I think they're two things that really separate them from the masses.
It's like the Michael Jordan analogy. He didn't pick up a basketball and start throwing it and hit every single hoop.
That's right.
Yeah. He had thousands of misses before he started hitting every single hoop.
Yeah, and I would say to anyone listening who has a small business or is thinking of doing marketing a small business is it is lonely. So I think the other thing and there's many things that link successful business owners, but another one is that they surround themselves with good people, whether that be mentors or coaches or staff or family members. But it's a lonely old business, small business, and marketing can be particularly lonely when you sort of don't know what you're doing. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. Find yourself an accountability buddy. Find yourself someone who's going through the same journey or has been through the same journey, and do it together, because you'll achieve your results quicker and it'll be more fun, most likely, and it should be fun.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Just speak, just talk to people, whether it be, and that doesn't have to be face to face to start. If you're not that confident, just LinkedIn, Facebook, any social platform, just start chatting.
That's it. I totally agree.
This is probably going to be my favourite question of this interview. Okay, so you moved from an office role, and this is the part that's my favourite, as to coin a Timbo phrase, a cubicle escapee, as you often call them on your show. How difficult was that transition?
First of all, why is that your favourite question?
Just because I like the word escapee, to be honest. But
he's a simple man, Peter, but he's an interesting fellow nonetheless.
I just like odd words. No, it just
for me,
it interests me because when people see successful entrepreneurs or people that have got small businesses, that they often don't realise the difficulty that somebody's gone through from being an employee to being by themselves.
Do you know, for me, is it the right question to ask me? Maybe. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to the question. I'm the type of person, Pete, who doesn't give much consideration. I don't sit there and weigh up the pros and cons and do research and quantify the upside and the downside and do the SWOT analysis. I don't do that. I listen to my gut and I act quickly. It's just how I've rolled. Not always successfully, but it's just me. I've got another mate, David, who is highly considered and wouldn't make a decision without doing all the research, without doing the SWOT analysis, without asking 50 of his closest confidants. It's just not me. So for me, I made the decision that I needed to get out of corporate. It wasn't for me. I didn't like the chains that came with being stuck in a cubicle working for the man. I didn't think it was as secure as people made out, but that's just me. So what I did, I planned my escape by I was the marketing manager for this travel company. I wasn't enjoying it. I had an idea that I would like to start my own business, but the first step out of full-time corporate was to get a contract in another corporate. So I got a 6-month contract with a corporate that I really enjoyed working for, actually. Great people. It was a project. It had an end date. What I didn't know was that when that end date came 6 months down the track, they said to me, your contract's up. We know you want to go and start a business. Why don't you go and do that, and we'll be your first client?
Oh, cool.
So I'm like, wow, that's insurance right there. So I had the confidence to go and do it, knowing that I had a client. They were a big client. They were a good paying client. So, but having said that, I get a lot of emails from listeners who, because I think I probably do push the idea of escaping the cubicle a fair bit, because funnily enough, and I never expected this, but my listening audience for the Small Business Big Marketing Show is, I always thought it would be small business owners, but there's a percentage that are people working for the man who have the dream of starting their own business one day, and my show provides them with a little bit of escapism, a little bit of, what could be. And so I am encouraging them. So I get a lot of emails from them saying, I'm about to jump. I've just jumped. I wish I could jump. What's stopping me, Timbo? And I think it is different for everyone. But as I was saying to you earlier, the idea that when you do jump and when you do get that, because when you jump, you get laser focused, right? Because you are falling at a rate of knots.
Yeah.
And so everything becomes accelerated and everything becomes like, I've got to get this to work. So, and great things happen when you operate in that kind of environment. And again, rightly or wrongly, I encourage people to do it. You don't die wondering, don't die wondering.
So for those people that are considering or have just jumped, what tips have you got for any smaller business looking to implement a marketing strategy if they've taken that leap and they have listened to your show or they know they need marketing? What tips have you got for somebody starting?
Make it a hobby. Enjoy it. Make time for it. It's not I'll get around to it part of running a business. Marketing is as important as doing your books. You're going to have an accountant or a bookkeeper. I'm not suggesting have a marketer. Sometimes, most of the times when you're starting a business, you can't afford a marketer, but make marketing an absolute component part of building your business. Schedule time every single, dare I say, day, at least every week to do some marketing. That said, marketing is everything and everything is marketing. So by default, serving a customer, creating a customer experience, going to a networking event, booking an ad in the local paper, getting a website up, filming a video, writing a blog post. It's all marketing, right? Everything you do around your business is marketing. But have a little bit of a planned approach. Again, I'm not the most planned guy. Other business owners would have a 10, 20, 30-page marketing plan. My experience tells me that they sit on the shelf gathering dust, but at least have a very clear idea of who you want to appeal to. And by that I mean a really clear idea, not just 40 to 50-year-old white-collar males living in the southeastern suburbs. I mean, give them a name, understand what keeps them up at night, understand what excites them, what does success look like, what questions do they have that you could answer, and really paint a picture in your mind of your perfect customer. Because when you know your perfect customer, then going and creating copy for your website or a presentation to give at the local Chamber of Commerce or a social media post, it all of a sudden, it almost becomes like you're writing a letter to them. You can really personalise the way you talk to them. You can use the language that they use. So get clear on, make it a hobby, get clear on who you're talking to, embrace it, make it part of what you do. I would also suggest, obviously, fish where the fish are, so identify where your perfect clients or perfect prospects are hanging out. Are they on Facebook? Are they not online? Do they read a lot? Do they go to certain events? But wherever they are, that's where you want to be. So identify that and then create a marketing strategy that has you getting in front of them on a regular basis. Don't think all of marketing is online. The marketing world's changed a lot in the last 15 years, in the last 15 minutes. But don't think that all your marketing, don't get a website up and then go, right, my job's done. No. Embrace all aspects of it. Marketing works well when you're hitting your prospects from various angles. So again, like online, offline, send them a card as much as send them a text, as much as, get them into an event, or whatever it is, but really embrace that. And I just, the last thing I would do if you're starting out with your marketing of your business is surround yourself with good people or good information. And whether that's listening to my show, to your show, to reading books, to joining Facebook groups around the topic of marketing, whatever it is, reaching out to someone and asking, would you mentor me? Do that, because again, you can't do it all on your own.
Yeah. So, final question before we go into a few quick fire questions. I feel that comedy can be quite a powerful emotion if used correctly within marketing, but you don't get that very often. You do get the funny odd advert and sometimes a bit of humour, but I'd say in general, across the board, it's plain old marketing. How important do you think having a certain element of comedy in your marketing is? Because for me personally, I think you've found a good mix of serious and lightheartedness, and then a little bit of comedy. And I know we started with a dad joke, but I don't mean that. I just mean in general.
Yeah. Look, I think I love a laugh, and my point of difference. And people say to me, "Why is your podcast so successful?" And because there's a lot of marketing podcasts out there, and I think there are better marketing podcasts out there than mine, and I honestly mean that. However, I work hard at finding and maintaining this intersection between education and entertainment. I can't entertain 100% of the time. I'm not a stand-up comedian, and I can't educate 100% of the time, because that would bore me to tears. But if I can find ways of, if I want to make a point, finding a story that supports that point, and if there's a smile in that story or a little laugh, then I think that's a win. That's a winner. That's a winning formula for me. But in answer to your question, I don't think comedy is one strategy of formulating your messaging, right? And it's not comedy is not necessarily, I'm not sure what I'm about to say is completely true, but comedy is not necessarily suited to a funeral director's marketing message, right? Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe there is a group of people that would really think that was great, that a funeral director could have a smile about death. But so Yeah, look, I think comedy humour is a great way of breaking through. It provides cut through. It relaxes people. It gets people's attention. But it's only one way of formulating your message. You know, you can be serious. You can be intellectual. You can be cheeky. You can be all sorts of things. And, you know, you and I are not going to sit here right now and say to everyone listening, you must incorporate humour or comedy into your marketing message, because A, it might not be appropriate to their brand, B, they might just not be that type of funny person. You know, it might not resonate with them.
Yeah, be yourself.
Be yourself, yeah. And I think too, comedy is the wrong word. I like the idea of putting a smile on someone's face every now and then. In a world that's so serious, in a world that's so mucked up, having the ability to just give someone a smile every now and then, a little kind of, yeah, that was cool, that was fun. That's all. And that can come through the way you serve someone, the way you do an interview, the way you write the opening copy on your website, the way you introduce a guest on your podcast. Whatever it is, you can just always work towards a little smile, and I don't think that hurts anyone.
It's weird that you picked up on funeral director there, because where I come from, it's a small town, and so mainly the funeral director gets a lot of business from that small town. I think there's only one maybe in that town, and the guy who runs the funeral home is called Nelson Chicken.
Love it.
It's just, there's no
is that
need
his surname, Chicken?
Yeah, Chicken.
That's fantastic.
I mean, you can't write it, you know, it's just superb. And if it wasn't his surname, I'd suggest he keeps it anyway. So.
Oh, there's so many lines there, so little time.
And absolutely. So speaking of so little time, beautiful segue. No one even noticed this. Are you ready for some quick-fire questions?
Go.
Name one must-read business book.
The $100 Startup. I think it's fantastic for anyone looking to take a side hustle into a serious business.
What was the last thing you Googled?
Romantic holidays in Phuket.
Ooh, get you. What?
Yeah, there you go.
What is your most used app at the moment?
That is an interesting question. It'd have to be Facebook. I mean, It's not something that I'm proud of or wished. It's just the one that you open the most throughout the day. So Facebook.
Sure. What is your one tip for anyone studying a marketing qualification?
Enjoy it. Have fun. Know that it can lead to so many things once you decide to go out and earn a buck from it.
Final quickfire question, most important one. Who has been your favourite guest so far on your show? It's all right, no one's listening. I know you've used that one before as well.
It's such an unfair question.
Absolutely.
I had a fellow, Joshua Nichols. He owns an electrician's franchise. He has put together a 21-step customer manifesto, which is genius. It's simple. It's beautifully elegant. It works its pants off in helping attract and retain great clients. And it's been one of my most popular episodes. So I'll say Joshua Nichols from Platinum Electricians.
That's the guy that says you never walk in anyone's garden, always put the mat down. Yeah, love that episode. Absolutely superb.
21 steps to servicing a customer every single time. Each one of the steps are really basic, but when you add the 21 up, it equals a lot more than 21.
Yep, small steps. Small steps to glory. Timbo, it's been absolute pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
That was great, Pete, and you're a great interviewer, and I think you're doing a great thing with this show, and you're going to make a difference to a lot of people's lives. So thank you for listening to my show, thank you for having me on yours.
Love it. And just before you go, if people want to find more out about small business, big marketing, or get in touch with you, where should they go?
smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.
And there you go. That's Timbo Reid. Thank you so much.
Good on you. Peace, brother.
What can I say? That was Timbo Reid of the Small Business Big Marketing Show podcast. He's a man after my own heart, as these takeaways should show. Timbo admits that his podcast has led him onto greater things, such as conferences and keynote speeches, and it shouldn't be a forgotten medium when it comes to comms planning. Thanks for showing me the value and the genius of the podcast, Timbo. Never forget that. In speaking to a lot of business owners, there are some fundamentals that, from a marketing perspective, are important to get right in order to increase your chances of success. Firstly, try and make marketing your hobby, something you enjoy, but remember to put some theory and relevance behind it by understanding who you want to appeal to and make it clear why they need you in their lives. And finally, the boomerang effect. Timbo believes that what you put out there, you get back using the pull technique, where you get your target market to come to you by being helpful and engaging that builds trust, reducing the price sensitivity, rather than the pushy type of marketing that can be, let's face it, pushy. So Mendelows Matrix. This is a quick tip, as it's difficult to describe a boxed framework on a podcast. So here's the basics of Mendelows Matrix. Check out the link in the show notes so you get a good feel for what it is we're discussing here. So what actually is Mendelows Matrix? The Matrix is a tool that can be used to consider attitudes of an organisation's stakeholders in terms of a project or strategy, plotting their interest towards it against the power they hold, what impact, involvement, or influence they may have, and in turn, how well informed or involved they need to be, which will have an effect on the success of the project or strategy you're working on. There are 4 key areas in which stakeholders may be placed: high interest and high power, high interest and low power, low interest and high power, and low interest and low power. It'll make much more sense when you actually see this matrix. Depending on where a key stakeholder is positioned, you'll be able to determine the impact they may have and the involvement they will require in order for a project to be successful. And this goes for anybody from director to somebody in a call center to somebody that works part-time, full-time, R&D, finance, IT, etc., etc. It can be absolutely anybody. Now, these stakeholders hold the key to the 3 pillars of most strategies, which are resource, time, and cost. Thank you so much for joining us today on Marketing Study Lab. It really means the world that you're listening to this out there, and hopefully I've provided you some value. If you're looking to know more about what Marketing Study Lab does and is about, go to marketingstudylab.co.uk or get in touch with me personally, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or feel free to email me at peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Happy marketing.